Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. How to help the writing industry right now is a very common topic of discussion among places that discuss fiction of any kind. There's a lot of bad storytelling out there, and if we want to get any better, we have to find the best ways to improve ourselves and to boost the visibility of the best content out there. Now, when writing is in a bad place, it is very common for writers looking to improve this to gather together and try and build one another up. And this is very good. Iron sharpens iron, after all, and working with other storytellers to improve your craft is one of the foundations of becoming a better writer. However, writers are only a part of the story circle that makes up the tradition of storytelling. The audience can also play an important role in improving storytelling. And the best way for the audience to play a role is for the audience to set up competitions. Now, already, this has some hurdles to overcome, especially in the independent sphere where everyone wants to do their own thing to begin with. Competitions require certain standards. They require methods of scoring. They require, in the case of storytelling, at least some kind of limitation by length and genre in order to be coherent. Creative people often don't like to be constrained by these kinds of restrictions, but again, they are important for the audience to understand what is going on and to accurately judge the stories that are entered into a competition. And we are talking about the audience rather than the author right now, so some measure of gatekeeping along these lines is going to be necessary in order for the audience to figure out what is going on. Furthermore, competitions can be structured in such a way as to create a good faith opportunity for a large variety of different authors to engage. The feeling of being ranked against each other is not really great either, but again, it is a good way to see where your own storytelling is lacking in the way it stacks up against others. Of course, many writing competitions don't give you that opportunity outside of the binary pass-fail that you usually hear back, and I would like to see that change. But competitions still offer the writer a great deal of opportunities as well. Let me cover what I think the benefits of a writing competition are before we talk more about how I think they are best structured. For the writer, competitions have a couple of very obvious benefits. The first is exposure. If you enter a competition, then at least a few people get to see your work. Competitions with open submissions, which is to say, submissions that anyone can read and be a part of the judging process for, are most beneficial in this respect. But at least a few authors or editors who are judging the competition are going to see your work, and that is benefit number one. Benefit number two is you will hopefully get at least a little feedback on your story. Again, this is usually going to be a binary pass-fail, but hopefully at least a couple of sentences of more in-depth feedback will come back to you. And since competitions usually have a fairly short submission length, you won't be investing that much time into the competition. Unless it's a competition over a novel or something like that. And I would actually not recommend submitting to those. It is an awful lot of work for a very low chance of return. And finally, you learn things whether you win or lose. If you win, of course, you learn where your best strengths in storytelling lie. And if you lose, well, you do learn a little bit about dealing with rejection, which is something that every author is going to have to learn sooner or later. For the audience, these competitions, again, particularly those with open submissions, give them the opportunity to see a work from a wide variety of authors who are possibly writing in very different genres, depending, again, on your type of competition, but even writing very different kinds of stories in a single genre, and evaluate them against each other to see what they like and they don't like. It gives the audience an opportunity to experience stories they might not otherwise pay much attention to. It also helps the audience discover artists they have never heard of and support the artists that they really like. So, what do I think the perfect competition looks like? Well, to start off with, I actually don't think there is a perfect type of writing competition. Ideally, we will have competitions for a wide variety of different kinds of writing. The genres could be sci-fi, fantasy, thriller, mystery, crime, or you could divide them by length. You could have competitions for short stories and novellas. Again, I don't think a full-length novel is a good area for a competition, but you could have any number of different lengths for competitions as well. I think that would work best with shorter submissions. For example, offering open submissions for a 1,000-word story could work as a way to get a wide variety of writers doing a wide variety of different things together under one roof to see what people really connect with. Authors can then evaluate what does very well under those circumstances and see if there's anything they would like to pursue at greater length in another venue. What I do think is very important in any competition is open submissions, which again means that the audience can see all pieces that are submitted to the competition. That is best for the audience and the author. So I think that is a very important part of any competition that people wish to have. Clear standards both on what kinds of submissions are being sought and how the submissions will be judged are also very important. If you are going to offer your pieces to a small panel of authors and editors to judge, then make that very clear. If there is going to be audience voting, that should be made very clear as well. And of course, if there's going to be both, then make that very clear. Don't make it a black box to your competitors. Another thing I suggest is keep the window of submission generous, but not too generous. There is a weekly writing prompt offered at ironage.media, and you have 2 weeks to submit to that, which is a respectable amount of time, but I think a little narrow, even in the internet age. Giving people something more like a month to work on a story, I think is a little bit better because they can refine their work and offer something that really shows their abilities to best advantage. Even for a 2,000 to 3,000 word story, 2 weeks is not a lot of time, especially if you are working on other projects and or a full-time job, which, let's face it, most writers are. Lastly, try and find creative ways to create ideas for your competitors to engage with. One nice thing about the Iron Age Media story prompts is that they come with an image to inspire your story. That is a great way to inspire all kinds of different stories. If I had one gripe to point out, it's that all of the images that have been seen so far are fairly fantasy themed. I would like to see at least a couple of sci-fi themed ones, and there have been 1 or 2 that could be taken that way, as well as some set in the modern day. Of course, part of this goes back to theming your competition. If you want to have strictly a fantasy themed competition, there's nothing wrong with that. Overall, I think more competitions, again, are a good thing. Having more themes to play on will appeal to a broader variety of authors and give the audience more opportunity to engage with new and creative content. Some ways of setting up a competition, such as giving the story's first sentence, appeal to me a lot less. For starters, the first sentence prompt can very easily be dodged around in clunky ways. While doing a clunky dodge at the very beginning of your story is probably going to be a mark against you in the competition, I would prefer to find ways to inspire stories that will inspire the artist throughout the entire story rather than just the very beginning. For example, giving a theme to the story or an object that has to be the center part of the story. Write a story about an ancient book, for example. Or you could play off the public domain. Write a story about Sherlock Holmes. Play off cultural touchstones. You could have competitors write a story that takes place at a comic book convention or at a baseball game. There are many possible different thematic through lines to give a short story competition that will really let people shine through. All in all, if you are very interested in storytelling and you have at least a small platform to offer to people, do start these competitions. They can't all be in one place and judged by one group of people. Sure, exposure doesn't seem like that great a reward, but there is a lot of satisfaction in just knowing that someone has read your story and thought about it at least a little bit, at least enough to judge it against another group of stories. Beyond that, consider some visibility boosting rewards. On ironage.media, they post the winning short stories from a month at the top of the prompts page. If you are somebody who runs a fiction podcast or a YouTube live stream, consider doing live readings of winning pieces. If you are really looking for great fiction, the best way to do it is to coax the authors into coming to you. And one of the best ways to do that is to offer them an opportunity to compete with other authors for the attention of an audience. I hope to see more opportunities like this in the future. And believe me, I am grateful for the ones that already exist. And who knows, if I gain a little more standing, I may try one myself. But that is something for the future. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button down there. You can use those as you see fit. And I'll talk to you later.